Here's a couple of stories that'll go ahead and remove any sort of lingering assertion that the legal system isn't totally being corrupted and just being replaced from the justice system to the social justice system. If you have any hope left out there, well, I'm going to go ahead and sap that out of you. Sorry in advance. Okay, so here we have, I've got two cases that I touched on briefly. Okay, one of them I did a couple of videos on. That's the one we're going to start with here with Ethan Lemming. He was the white kid. Okay, the white kid that ended up losing his life in the parking lot of LeBron James's school, and he was like, oh, that's real sad and shit, I gotta go ball or something like that. But if the races were reversed, oh my god, he would still be caterwauling about the racial injustice that happened. But no, somebody loses your life on the premises of a school that is barely functional, and because it was the two youths who didn't do nothing wrong who ended up, getting finally snatched up. You don't need to amplify this injustice. It's not like your hometown is descending into chaos because, well, a kid lost his life after getting beat up and now they're walking free. I'm sorry, what? Brothers who killed, brothers, like actual blood brothers, not like brothers, killed Ethan Lemming, stomped on his chest, broke his neck, and took his car, acquitted of involuntary manslaughter charges. Fantastic stuff. U.S. Marshal Services last year arrested... Ugh, why is there fat chicks on here? That makes me even sadder than reading this story. The three men accused of fatally beating the 17-year-old high school student, Ethan Lemming, to death outside of the school founded by LeBron James in June. The three men beat Lemming to death and later bragged about it to friends. According to reports, Ethan Lemming, whose father is a pastor, tried to calm the situation in a parking lot. When he got jumped and hit in the head from behind, the suspects broke his neck. We learned from the police reports that the suspects took Lemming's car and prevented his friends from driving him to the hospital. Lemming was later pronounced dead in the parking lot. Okay, so yeah, there's one of the police reports. Okay, it was later reported that attackers broke Lemming's neck, and Ethan Lemming had a shoe print on his chest where he died. The killer stomped on him so hard that they left a shoe print on his chest, which could be easily verified by taking a shoe print or anyways, just matching up any of the shoe sizes of the people or of the suspects that you have right there. Like, that would be very easy to figure out. Or just hell, find the shoes. Just find whatever 9.5 Jordans the kids were wearing at the time and match them up. Last July, an Ohio grand jury indicted 3 suspects of lesser charges after killing Lemming and stealing his car. Lesser charges. Yeah, involuntary manslaughter. You beat the fuck out of somebody, broke his neck, and killed him. Involuntary. It was just a little scuffle between kids, it wasn't somebody getting jumped and then had his car stolen. No. It's just boys will be boys. On Monday, a jury convicted the two brothers, Deshaun Stafford, 20, and his 19-year-old brother, Tyler, on lesser assault charges. Oh, just assault charges. We didn't intend him to die as shit. We just did. Why boys are soft. Deshaun Stafford was found guilty of felony aggravated assault and 1 misdemeanor count of assault. His brother was found guilty of 1 count of misdemeanor assault. Putting a fucking boot through his chest. Cool. Deshaun is facing 2.5 years in prison after he fatally punched a minor teen. You kill him and you get 2.5 years. 2.5 years for a first offense. The sentencing, it'll probably end up being time served and a few months, and then it'll just be out on the street in order to re-offend because, well, chances are. Jurors on Monday handed up their verdicts to the involuntary manslaughter trial of the two brothers for a fight that ended in a death, the 17-year-old Ethan Lemming. Deshaun and Tyler Stafford were acquitted of involuntary manslaughter charges. Deshaun was found guilty of felony aggravated assault, as well as a misdemeanor count of assault. Tyler was found guilty of a misdemeanor count of assault. The third, first-degree felony count of involuntary manslaughter against Deshaun was dismissed as jurors failed to reach a verdict. How do you do that? Summit County Common Pleas Judge Tammy O'Brien declared it a mistrial. Well, yeah, of course. Guess who? Of course, never fucking fails. Deshaun's bond was revoked during the Monday hearing, meaning he could face up to 2.5 years. Up to. Chances are he ends up getting the whole 2.5-year sentence, next to 0. Probably about the chance that, Ethan Lemming will be able to see his adult years. On his convictions, prosecutor said Monday the sentencing hearing is set for October 22nd or 26th. Yeah. What do you want to guess? It'll be time served plus, I don't know, less than a year. Prosecutors responded to the verdict. Brad Gesner, chief counsel of the Summit County Prosecutor's Office, told reporters that his office may retry the first-degree felony charge of involuntary manslaughter. You fucking better. You got a conviction on the assault charges, so you at least, I don't know, if you could just put together a better fucking case, you goddamn idiot. The jury took their time. You see how long they deliberated. These are decisions the juries could tell us about, and we'll have to wait and see if we have the opportunity to hear from them. The family has gone through something that no one ever should have to deal with. The emotions tied to this loss of their child. We respect their grieving. There's nothing that can be done to bring their child back. There's something in better circumstances would have never happened. Yes, if they didn't have an intrinsic hate for him. If they didn't want to feel like they need to go ahead and procure a brand new vehicle. If he was just not white and Akron, maybe that would have helped him out a little bit more. But without knowing how the case was presented or any of the other facts outside of, the very obvious ones, maybe it just wasn't a very strong case, okay? Maybe the prosecution didn't put their best foot forward, okay? This could be one of those things where it's like, wow, okay, maybe it was just a simple assault that ended up going a little bit too far and nobody could have possibly foreseen the consequences of their actions. I don't believe that for a second, but I'll just play devil's advocate for a moment. But we also have another crime that I covered. I know I covered this. It was definitely a part of a video that I did probably with other crimes that were in there as well, but this one was exceptionally heinous given the fact that, well, everything was documented on video, on camera at least, and, well, is a 68-year-old jewelry shop owner. Apparently his name's Son Steve, and he had a man, this was in Wilmington, Delaware, by the way, Isn't there some other famous criminal that lives in that area? But anyways, no, that happened right there, and all of it was caught on camera, okay? It looks like a classic case of attempted murder in order to just go ahead and bust a couple of jewelry cabinets and, I don't know, steal some bread in order to feed their families. I think isn't that the narrative or some shit like this? But yes, the 68-year-old jewelry shop owner was pistol whipped, hit in the head with a hammer on September 15th in Delaware of last year, right? That was probably about the time that I covered this as well. Son Steve told me that he wants to spread awareness because I'm thinking about my family, safety, and safety of Korean business owners. Yeah, I can probably skip ahead a little bit, but again, because it's graphic, right? Like, he ends up with a hole caved in his fucking skull, for Christ's sakes, by this goddamn animal. But yeah, okay, there it is right there. Okay, he's down there on the ground. He gets hit in the head with a hammer after he goes back behind the counter in order to, well, obviously he'd have the hammer because he wants to break the cases and steal whatever he can before he gets out there. And yeah, and as you can see, you can get a little bit of an insight as to who's perpetrating this. But we had that trial also wrap up recently, and, well, wouldn't you know it, Calvin Ushery, 39 years old. Yeah, he ended up, we'll let the article do the talking on this. 68-year-old Korean-American jewelry shop owner was pistol whipped and assaulted with a hammer on September 15th by a black male suspect during a robbery. Calvin Ushery, 39, was arrested. The victim is unable to walk now due to his head injury. Suh, who managed to call the police before losing consciousness, suffered serious head injuries, including a severe concussion and internal bleeding. I have this scrolled down just a little bit because, well, unfortunately, they end up using a fairly graphic picture of our Korean friend completely covered in blood. Thanks for doing that. And, well, actually, it's just YouTube being gay for not being allowed to, show that type of coverage. But if you want to, of course, link, description, all that fun stuff. But yes, a mistrial. Wow, a mistrial again because the jury, a couple of jurors that are in there just going, he was just trying to steal in order to make ends meet. Come on, it's not like everything was caught on fucking camera. How do you get to a mistrial? Ushery, who was arrested a week later after trying to sell the stolen jewelry, was hit with a robbery, assault, and other charges, faced by a total of 107 years in prison. But this week, a mistrial was declared after the jurors were deadlocked following 2 days of deliberation. Prosecutors plan to refile the charges, thank Christ. Meanwhile, Suh is still undergoing rehabilitation. Unfucking believable how this ends up happening. But yeah, man, a little bit more backstory on this one. Brutal assault during a Wilmington, Delaware jewelry store heist played out before the jury, showing suspect Calvin Ushery allegedly attacking 68-year-old Chang Suh, who who the fuck is the other guy then? Oh, that was stomped and hit in the head at least a dozen times, twice with a hammer. The mistrial was declared after the jurors told the jury they cannot reach a consensus in the state's case against Usery, despite watching him attack Suh. Yeah, it's plain as day. Like, you can watch the video, and I'm sure they did hundreds of times. It's like, that's him, that's the victim. He's clearly swinging the hammer and then also pistol whipping asking him, what else do you need? Okay. Video of the suspect bludgeoning the owner with a hammer was the first thing prosecutors showed the jury during the opening statements during the 3 days of testimony last week. That's not unusually short. That's normally how long trials end up going. It's not like the Amber Heard Johnny Depp 6 weeks of trial. That's a special exception. Okay. Most criminal trials, okay, and I know that was a civil trial, but still, most criminal trials just wrap up within a week anyways. Matthew Keating, Usery's attorney, told the jury that the video of the robbery is visceral and provokes a lot of emotions. Yeah, exactly, like somebody that has an immense amount of greed and no goodwill, but for another living human being, but urged them not to hold that against his client. You shouldn't jump to conclusions. Yeah, he didn't realize, actually, like the security camera footage, I know it looks damning, but she didn't realize that, Mr. Suh also had a bug on his head. Like he was just trying to do him a solid by getting it off his head, and unfortunately he missed twice. Then he tried to go outside, and it was windy that day, so he needed stuff to also help him get weighed down so he didn't get blown away, but he was just also looking for some help, and that's why it took the police a week in order to come and get him. And he was doing community outreach, and that's why he was going to other pawn shops in order to just try to see if anybody else could also help him with this situation. So don't jump to conclusions or anything like that. Keating ported the images from the robbery in the pawn shop, telling the jury, similar doesn't mean the same. Are you serious? And the first thing the suspect did to the shop owner was pistol whip him, causing the man to fall to the ground. After that, the robber placed jewelry in the bag, taking his time in gathering the items before the stealing. But that wasn't enough for the vicious attacker. Periodically, to return to the owner on the ground and strike him again for good measure, including blows with a hammer. Before leaving, the robber used a cloth to wipe the surfaces of the store. He was wearing sunglasses, a black backpack, and a black mask. The Korean-American jewelry store owner was in intensive care for 4 days following the assault. Yeah, with a copious amount of brain swelling. To the point where he can't walk, but you know what? Hey man, he's not entirely sure. Like, he's got brain damage. We can't trust him to identify the guy who, irrevocably damaged his life. We can't trust him with that. Come on. Surveillance footage caught the suspect riding a bicycle away from the store. Detectives found a bike that matched the description in a search of Usery's apartment, according to an opening statements by the prosecutor. Other evidence presented to the jury by prosecutors included surveillance footage of the suspect attempting to sell a large amount of jewelry into a local pawn shops a week after the robbery. This is not a smash and grab. Deputy Attorney General Karen Volker asserted it's a planned robbery and assault. Additionally, prosecutors said Usery was arrested shortly after trying to sell the jewelry to a woman at a local gas station. Upstanding citizen. Again, just community outrage, trying to see if anybody could help him with that poor man, and hopefully he could get that fly out of his hair. Items involved in the transaction were later identified as originating from the heist by a member of the family that owns the store. Prosecutors told the jury in opening statements, Delaware Online reported. But yeah, that's what we're getting right now. Not to mention the absolute downturn in quality of prosecutors and how counsel in general. Now you got activist jurors hopping on racially diverse criminal cases and had just given you mistrials. Fucking mistrials, just doing what they can because criminals are being unfairly targeted by the police. Is that the cope that we're going with? Unfucking believable, man. If I didn't know any better, I would say that it's a coordinated attack against a certain type of people. But I don't know. Maybe I've just been looking at too many crimes, looking at too many legal cases, listening to the news, and watching the world around me deteriorate. Maybe that's just the case. Okay, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe, you know what? I'm probably wrong about this, okay? So with all that said, thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.